Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from our sponsor. The Daily Compliance News for February 28, 2023. Yes, it's the last day of February, the Biometric edition. We begin with that story from the Wall Street Journal, as biometric privacy ruling in Illinois has greatly expanded the liability reach for tech firms. This comes from the White Castle case, and now we have had another ruling from the Illinois court, which has expanded the scope of the law, which already was one of the toughest. The second ruling sided with workers who said a logistics company sued a logistics company for collecting fingerprint information for employee time clocks without consent. There's a 5-year statute of limitations, not a 1-year. There are another between 1,000 and 2,000 cases on waiting Illinois Supreme Court rulings. So the floodgates are open. If you're doing business in Illinois and you're taking biometrics of any kind, you better get with the program or you're going to be in a world of trouble like White Castle. Next up from the BBC, fish rot, the financial scandal from Namibia. It stretches from Namibia to Iceland, and it involves at least $20 million. The southern African country is now preparing for the biggest corruption trial in its history, and Iceland is stuck in it because of the alleged kickbacks paid by Icelandic fishing fleets. So Iceland gets in trouble for alleged corruption. Next up from the Financial Times, a UniCredit board member, that's an Italian bank, has resigned following unsubstantiated allegations of leaks from the board. The board member, Dame Jane Ongandia, an English woman, and the former chief executive of Virgin Money, who joined the board in 2021, voluntarily stepped down after she was interviewed by the CEO and the general counsel. Obviously, things were a little askance because of the board leaks, but interesting that she would resign. And finally, 1MDB. Just when you thought it was safe to go out, it turns out there's more 1MDB news. We've previously talked about Roger Unton and his plea for mercy. Well, now we have 2 Abu Dhabi sovereign wealth funds, IPIC and ABAR, have agreed to pay $1.8 billion to Malaysia for their role in facilitating the bribery scandal. They stood up for J-Lo and guaranteed his losses to the Malaysian government. And now, some 10 years later, they're finally settling. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.